everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Chanel in the City. My name is Chanel Omari, and we have a special guest with us here today. I love her. She's one of my favorite housewives of all the housewife franchise. She's the star of the Real Housewives of Dallas, currently airing on Bravo TV. Please welcome my dear friend, Stephanie Hollman. How are you?
I am so good. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So excited. So thank you.
Thank you so much. By the way, I told you this before we recorded. You look beautiful. You look just as is, as you look on camera. A lot of people don't. And so it's just so nice to see you look, you know, just as beautiful as you do on camera. Like, what is your secret?
Oh, well, I'm not going to lie. I have my sweatpants and tank top. And then I just threw this little purple jacket over it because I was like, but I put some makeup on just for you. Because usually I'm one of those people that's very natural. I don't wear a lot of makeup whenever I'm around the house or around town. So yes, just for you.
I love that. Thank you. How are you doing during quarantine? I know it's been tough for everybody. How are you? How's your husband, your family?
Yeah, we're good. Texas is open, I think, a lot more than other states. Travis and I have both been fully vaccinated.
Nice. Yes.
So which is kind of nice because you have that like fear taken, off a lot. I actually had COVID late last year. My husband and I both had it. He had it much worse than I did. So I think there are definitely different levels. So I had it, got through it. And so whenever the vaccine came out, I was like, I am going to get this as soon as possible. So
yes.
It's nice just to feel like you're somewhat protected and you're protecting, like for us, it's more our parents and grandparents. And so it's,
of course. Yeah. Cause I'm a 36-year-old woman and I had to move back with my parents on Long Island. So my whole thing is keeping them healthy and safe. It's really, and others. I'm more about others. It's not about me. It's like I can probably handle it. Younger people can, but you want to protect the rest of your neighbors. And so I think that's really smart of you. And I'm so sorry you went through it because it's awful. It's just completely awful.
It was, it's crazy. It had me down for about a month, maybe not feeling horribly sick, but I had no energy for about a month. Like I had to take naps every day. It was one of those things that just lingers, even whenever you're, not contagious and you feel like you're better, it knocks you down. It was hard.
So there's no medicine. It's just really like resting and kind of having it leave your system.
I was on a lot of medication. My doctor put me on, I want to say like 4 different pills. So I was on some heavy medication, but I think whenever you feel like yourself again, like I felt very short, like I had very short breath for about a month. So I just couldn't do anything. Like if I went on walks, even I would, and this is like 3 weeks after I would still just walking around the house, I would feel like I need to sit down. So it was a little crazy. It was crazy.
Thank God you guys are feeling better.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say, speaking of you and your husband this season and most seasons, the reason I think you're one of my favorite housewives is because you're very raw and vulnerable. And I think, we're going to get to mental health. I know you're a big advocate for mental health. I see you in a lot of the commercials, which thank you so much because this podcast is about that. We want to advocate the mental health community. And I think you're very open. And I love that because I think we can learn. It's never like you're open where you're trying to put someone out or something out in your life. I think you're open so that we can learn from it. Talk to us a little bit about the issues you've gone through with your husband this season and why do you think it was just because of what's going on with COVID? Because a lot of families are experiencing it, including mine,
I would say when COVID happened, when it first happened in the lockdown, was happening, I know myself very well and I know kind of my triggers for whenever I get in a dark place and isolation and sitting at home in a dark house and not having any sunshine. That's a very big trigger for me because I use a lot of, I walk 14,000 steps a day, not to lose weight, but because it's so good for me mentally to have that time just to decompress and to kind of be with myself and my thoughts. So during that time, I just made sure I was outside a lot. It's hard on your marriage too, because Travis and I we're both very, very busy. So we're not home a lot. So being at home with your husband was not, I love you, babe, if you're listening, but it was not my favorite thing. Like at first it was fun, but then he's very, type A, and he likes to get stuff done. So he was going crazy. I felt like I was kind of made for, uh,
Me
made
too.
for it with that. Like
I said the mental health community was definitely made for it
yes.
because it saved us. It was like an excuse, right?
Yes, it's so much self-care. I just really took care of myself. Like I would go outside, I would go meditate. I had all that time to really take care of myself and put myself first, and put my mental health first. So for me, I was maybe living my best life, and for him, he was living his worst life because he could not stand to sit at home. And I think people don't get that. Like I'm much more of a I'm not really one of those outgoing people. I'm much more introverted than I think people understand. So for me, I was living my best life. Like there was a point where I was like, okay, I got to leave my house, but it was really good for. I turned it into something that was really powerful for me mentally, which in the beginning I was concerned about, but I just made a really big decision to take care of myself and do the things that work. But it was hard it's very, very hard on your marriage. And I never want to be one of those married women that pretend like marriage isn't hard, because that's not fair to these women that are newly married where it is hard. And they're like, well, this person just pretend, this person has the perfect marriage. It's not, it's hard. You have to fight for it. And you have to work for it. And I think marriage is a choice. And every day you wake up and you choose to be with that person, and you choose to fight through your issues and and work through things. And that's how I think marriage is. Sometimes it bothers me when people pretend like it's so easy, because I'm like, you're sending the wrong message to people who are struggling, because it's not easy. It's hard.
That's why right. And that's why I think we relate to you the most, because you're open with it, saying like, just because it's hard doesn't mean, God forbid, we're getting a divorce, or God forbid,
Yeah.
we're not going to have intimacy. There's just, it's hard. It's the common denominator that you said was choice. I think we have to
Mhm.
choose. And like dating now has been hard. I'm single, and I think we break up with people easily or faster because we choose not to want to spend the rest of our life with someone like that. And I think you're right. It's
Yeah.
all about the choice. I mean, how did you and your husband gravitate to each other? Why do you think you choose each other?
Whenever we met, we were both, I think, especially with men, whenever you meet a man, you have to want the same things. Like everything kind of has to align. So I was, in my late 20s. I wanted to have children. I wanted to be married. Like I was at a time where I wanted that. And he's 10 years older. He was in his late 30s and he wanted the same thing. So if we met 5 years earlier, I don't know if we would be married, because I don't think he was ready to settle down and have a family. But I think kind of all the stars aligned. We wanted the same thing. We got along really, really well. We're very different We have very different personalities, but we tend to complement each other in life. Like even in parenting, I'm much softer than he is. Like he's like, do your chores, get this done, help me in the yard. Like he really makes the kids work a lot more than I do. But I love it because our kids have a really strong worth ethic. And I think a lot of kids, especially that are raised having a lot of nice things, they tend to rely so much on their parents that they don't really do a lot when they get older, because they're like, oh, the money's there. So I like the fact that he's like, no, they're working, they're going to work in the factory at our company. Like, so it kind of is a nice balance. I think sometimes opposites attract and they complement each other.
I love that. How do you guys cope with, I guess, if you are talking about issues on television and on the public has their opinion and they interact with it, how do you not let it get the best of your marriage or just your relationships in general?
I'm really lucky with Travis and the show, because a lot of guys who um, care what people think, it would be hard, right? Because they're like, you know what? I didn't sign up to be on TV. You did, but this is not fair. The good thing that I love and actually don't like about Travis, it's my favorite and least favorite thing, is he truly does not care. He is who he is. He's authentic to who he is, and people love him or they hate him, but he doesn't try to fit the mold of what the public or what the audience wants him to be. And I kind of like that, because sometimes I will find myself, feeling like I am not enough for this person, or to, like it's hard. And you want people in general, you want people to like you. I'm a people pleaser. And I used to always get on Twitter and do the hashtag and see what people were saying, because I do think you can learn about yourself and grow if you do this for the right reasons. But there comes a point where you're like, it can really affect your self-esteem and your value and self-worth. So I don't do that anymore. But he truly doesn't care. Like people can go on and say horrible things about him. And he's like, I'm never going to meet these people. So it doesn't matter.
Right. I think that's the best. I think
Yeah.
it's what you said. People care. I know I've dated a couple of guys because I was on reality TV for one season and they weren't okay with it, or just being an influencer and a podcaster. You're putting your life out there, but more so you guys are, because you really are
Yeah.
on. Now you're on the fifth season of Real Housewives of Dallas. So now it's the world who's very familiar with you in your life. So I just commend you, and like I think that's so honorable that you guys are yourselves authentically, and you accept him for him no matter what. He accepts you for you. And that's a
Yeah.
really good example for the world, because I think we're all struggling as, it doesn't matter about young or not young. I think we're all struggling, whether we're in a couple or single, right? To find that somebody who doesn't
Yeah.
care and supports us no matter what, doesn't care about what public opinions, what they think. I mean, so how do you cope with that within yourself, being the star of such a popular show?
I remember running into Melissa Gorga at an event in New York, and it was season 3, and it was so hard because I would take everything so personally, and things would bother me much more than they should. And I mean, the first 3 seasons, I don't think it was a healthy time for me because I would fixate so much on what strangers thought that I would almost forget about my family, which is not a good quality, and I completely own it. And so then she said, you know what, after 4 seasons, you just really don't hear, like you've heard every good thing and every bad thing about you. So nothing really penetrates, like nothing bothers you because you've heard and seen it all. And there's some truth to that. So now if people say something, I don't, I don't really feed into the negativity. Like I think a lot of people want to be seen, whether that's good or bad. So I choose to um, see the good and I will respond to kindness. But the negativity, I don't feed into it. I don't respond. I don't try to have people like me by trying to share, things about myself that I think that, like go on and try to like make them like me and be a little keyboard warrior myself. If you're kind, I'll respond. And if you're nasty, I usually just ignore you, because if people aren't seen, they usually give up because it's not fun for them.
Yeah, I know. I think that's why also I like you so much because even on the show, like with your cast members, with your friends, a lot of the women are strong-minded and they have
Hmm.
strong opinions, but you're always, I don't think I've ever seen you get out of character. Like the way you respond when you're, whether it's arguing or just debating an opinion, it's not even arguing with you. I mean, how do you
Yeah.
get to that point? Because you could teach me a thing or two, because I'll go to 0 to 100 real quick. I'm really kind and sweet, but it's like when someone keeps pushing
Yeah.
and pushing, I'm still working through in therapy how to, even when I'm pushed, right? Not to get 0 to 100, because then I'm just as bad. So like, how do you stay in your, I guess, like aura, and not like go past it, right? Like that's what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, I've always been pretty. My mom was a therapist, so she's
Okay,
a
that
licensed
makes
therapist.
sense.
So I've always had like a mom who kind of mirrored like healthy communication. So I'm like, just talk about stuff. So I mean, I'll be honest, like season 1, we did not know we were housewives. And I never, ever, ever in my wildest dreams thought I would make it 5 seasons. I was like, maybe season 2. And I just kept, because
Really?
I know that I don't fit the mold. I'm highly aware of that. Like if people write that, I'm like, I understand. I completely, but also I never want to change who I am and the way I handle conflict. Because if I yelled and screamed and like threw a glass, I think it would be so inauthentic. It would feel awkward for even people watching, because it's not who I am. And I never want to be somebody I'm not for a television show, because, I have 2 little boys that are going to see this one day. And I want them to look back and be like, you know what, I'm really proud of the fact that mom did this and she was herself and she didn't, change who she was to be on reality TV. So I'm grateful that Bravo accepts me and lets me be myself. Because
Yes, because
yeah.
that's a big deal. That's what I was going to say. Because a lot of people, not in general, not just reality TV, but even
Yeah.
in Hollywood, you feel like you have to be a persona just so that you don't get replaced, or you're just, I mean, it's
Yeah.
a lot of our mental health, that's what comes into it. Like, right. Like the issues that we get insecure. So I think that's so cool that you're like, no, I'm going to be me. And Bravo lets me be me, that's why I love Bravo too. It's
Yeah.
just really authentic. You're allowed to be who you are and not be, I guess, punished for it, or just, feel guilty for it. Those are the words.
Yeah.
talk, right. So let's talk about yourself. I think the audience really takes a liking also to your friendship with Brandi Redmond,
Uh-huh.
and the fact that you two have been, I mean, my mom and I love the two of you too, because,
Oh,
the fact that you guys have been still friends, even whether you've gone through issues or not, you guys have remained, I think, the closest out of the whole group consistently. Talk us
yes.
through the friendship and why you feel it's the strongest amongst all the women.
Whenever we were on the show together, she was, a cowboy cheerleader. And I think she was used to having a little bit of spotlight and the pressure. I wasn't. So season one, I kind of freaked out. And she was definitely the person I went to and I would like cry and I think I put a lot of pressure on our friendship because we were both figuring this out. And, with cheerleaders, you're just loved. Like everyone loves the Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. But on reality TV, it's not necessarily the case. People love you and they love to hate you.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a wake up call for both of us. So I think that we were both under so much stress and pressure that our friendship, I mean, between the end of season one and the beginning of season two, I mean, like it just was so fractured because I think we maybe both lost ourselves in it. And we were both, just very anxious, stressed out versions of ourselves. And, but I will say, I had never fought with her before until that season and that summer. And it was the best thing for our friendship because it kind of taught us how to communicate with each other. We were always just like fun friends that hung out together and got drunk together. But whenever you do something like this, it's a very different atmosphere and there's a different level of pressure because you have to be honest with how you feel, but you also don't want to hurt your girlfriend in the process.
Yep.
So we had to have more of an honest relationship, maybe where if it's someone you see just whenever you're having fun, there's nothing bad that's happening. So you don't have to have those conversations. So I think it's given us both a chance to really be more honest with our feelings and our friendship. And that I think that has made it more authentic because, we're not just sugarcoating everything.
Right. And she trusts you a lot to the point where, because I have some friends who, whether they're cast members or my famous friends in the media, if
Hmm.
somebody asks me a question on them, sometimes I'm hesitant to talk for them. But I know Brandy's been going through a lot with, talking
Yeah.
about the alleged affairs, talking about her not coming back. How do you, as a friend, I just look up to you so much. I respect
Yeah.
all your answers. You know what I said yesterday? So I go to my publicist. I go, if Stephanie Hollman can be in the press for positive stuff, you gotta find a way, because there's never, like, if she can really maneuver to talk about her friend in a good light, there's no excuse for
Yeah.
anything, right? Because
No,
there's a way. You always are
yeah.
classy about it. So take us through
Thank
how
you.
you, like, how do you, what's the process? Like, what do you do when you're asked that if you're not even prepared for it? And how is she coping too? I mean, my heart goes out to her. I love her
Yeah.
too.
She is, I remember when everything went out with the video, I was doing Watch What Happens Live kind of right after, and I knew that it was something that was probably going to be discussed. So I called her and I said, "Hey, I want to have your permission. Like what, because I never want to do anything. Like I never want to speak for someone because it's not the same." But I knew I'd be asked. So I think as long as I don't know, so I wanted her permission because I never wanted to do something and her feel like I betrayed her.
Yeah.
And, with everything that's gone on with her, I was talking to her yesterday and I'm like, you have to live your life for you, not for the audience, not for anybody else, but you, like what you do in your marriage and how you feel and how you handle this. This is you and your family and your husband. Nobody lays in bed with your husband and you. Nobody's there with you off camera during those, times that really matter. And I just think it's important for people to be true to themselves because sometimes I think whenever you're on a TV show like that, something like the video happens and you're like, you feel like you have to do what the audience wants you to do, like you're pressured. And I was like, never feel, I was like, you need to figure out what's going on in your life and how you want to be happy. And don't do it for anybody else. Like do it for yourself because at the end of the day, in 10 years, it's just going to be you and your children and your family and all these people on social media who are giving you advice and telling you, you know, to leave him or whatever. Like they're not going to matter. You're never going to meet half these people. So I think a lot of times people make decisions based on what the popular opinion is and not on what their heart's telling them. And but for me, I just always want to make sure she's okay. Like whenever it happened, I wasn't I didn't want to gossip with her about it. I was in Aspen, it was spring break. So I had our therapist friend and then my assistant go by her house to make sure she was okay, because she's been through a lot this year. And for me, it's more about making sure that my friend's mental health is okay. To where, and I, to where other people maybe wanted to say, oh, what did you think? What's the, like kind of get information. I just wanted to make sure she was okay, because it's hard. I mean, it's hard to go through that stuff anyway, but especially whenever you can't even open Instagram or Twitter without it's everywhere, so it was hard.
Did she come to you ever to ask, what would you do? Or do you feel not comfortable with if somebody ever asked you, right? A family member,
Yeah.
is that a hard position to be in? Just because you're right, it is. I mean, I don't always think cheating, not cheating, allegedly, not allegedly, whatever the
Yeah.
case may be, you're right. Nobody's in the family. So it's hard to say, right? I don't know. What do you
Yeah.
think?
I mean, I really try not to give people, especially when it comes to marriage or, anything that really, really matters and is life changing. I try not to give people what I think they should do, because in the end, you have to really look inside yourself and inside your family and figure out what's best for you. And I think as long as you're happy, then that should be enough for everybody else. And, you have to, you're the one living your life, not anybody else. So sometimes I have friends, other, friends outside of the show that have been in hard situations, and they've kind of made situations based on what their friends think they should do. And they've regretted it in the end. And I think a really good friend should just support you and love you through whatever that is, whether
That's what I
it's
was gonna
good,
say. Yeah.
bad, whatever it is, like just support and say, I'm here for you. And whatever decision you make, it's not wrong. It's the right one for you. And that's what I think a good friend should be, instead of somebody who gives advice on what they would do, because I don't know what I would do. I have 2 children, and I think it's just hard to put yourself, for me, I would have to be in the situation to know what I would do.
Would you say probably that's why you think you have a strong relationship with her, but also maybe less conflict amongst the cast as opposed to the other women? Because I think you're just honest and you don't tell people what to do, but like you're there, you lend an ear and you
Yeah.
ask for the permission. It's kind of like your intentions are clear, right? So I think a
Yeah.
lot of the miscommunication amongst the ladies is, where do the intentions lie? We'll get to your opinion on Deandra's issue,
Yeah.
because we had Deandra on the podcast and she had said a lot of it is about intentions. And I found that interesting, because with you, I think the intentions are always clear. And so I think that's why
Yeah.
the audience has more of a kind of a codependent relationship with you, where they are attached to you, they are invested in you, and it's hard because you're like the girl next door that represents us. You know what I mean?
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I think, and that's why I was like, I'm so interested to talk to you and understand, how do you go through it? Because we can learn and we can be better from it.
So on the show, I think, first of all, if somebody says something to me, I try to be a good friend, because it's hard to find good friends, as like on reality TV, you meet people and you don't know what their agenda is, or if what you say is, if you can trust them or not. So I try to be like more of a vault with my friends. Like if you tell me something and it's something that's so important and you have to get it off your chest, and we're on a show together, I'm never going to go and use that to elevate myself on a TV show. I would never do that. I think that's a horrible thing to do. I put my own stuff out there, but I'm not going to put somebody else's stuff out there if they're not ready for it to be out there. And I know not everyone does that. And I know that probably makes a good housewife, but I just would rather like have long lasting friendships after it. But I do think it's a lot to do with intention. And then also I really try to have those conversations. Like if something big's going out and I'm doing press, I'm like, okay, so this is probably going to be brought up. Like, how do you want me to handle it? This is what I would say. Is that okay with you? Like, I never want to, and like, I never want to hurt someone's family, because family to me is the most important thing in the world. So, I just never want to hurt like a family dynamic or even somebody's husband or anybody, because, we signed up for it, but I know that the husbands and kids sometimes are innocent bystanders in the aftermath. So,
And you know what? You're right. Because it's about, like, I think a lot of times, sometimes we operate as human beings through ego. And I just
mhm,
think that's so important what you just said. Like, I always think about someone else's family. So before you want to be right, and before you want to, I get it. We get angry. We want to defend ourselves.
mhm,
We want to be on the defense of our character. But like you said, I don't think you need to, the more you explain yourself, I think the more you get into hot water, the less you
Yeah.
explain yourself and be yourself and just operate from kindness. I think that's why you're in the position you are in. You're not trying to be somebody else. You're not trying to compete. You're not trying to upkeep. And I think those are like, I mean, these are the valuable lessons my mom's tried to teach me, but she's like, you
Yeah.
never listen to me.
No, no.
You know, so like that's so cool. I mean, so what would you, with that being said, what would you think? Why do you think this season, season five, if so, is different than any of the other seasons, or what sets apart season five for you from the other seasons?
This season was probably one of the first seasons I had fun to do the show. I think I was so ready to kind of get out and do something, anything. So just being with the girls. Also, like I said, I'm much more of an introvert. So I really liked filming during COVID because it was more just about the group and small groups and not, hundreds, strangers in the background that you don't know at different people's parties. So I liked it. I felt like the dynamic was really great with the girls until it wasn't, which what tends to happen is when things air, people get their feelings hurt. It's really sad because then things start changing. People say things in interviews, people say things in confessionals, and then that's kind of where all the drama happens. But whenever we finished out the season, I mean, we were all like so excited and such good friends. And like it was just really amazing. And I wish it ended that way. I wish it could have been that way through the whole thing. I think it's just a really hard dance to do where everyone feels like they're doing their job, but they're also supporting each other and so it's a hard dance.
So in terms of Tiffany Moon, the new housewife, how do you
Uh-huh.
feel, because you've been an OG, when a new housewife comes in, how do you usually feel about it? How do you feel about her, this season? Where's your friendship now?
So I thought whenever she first came on, I was excited because I think it's really cool to have someone who has a full-time job. I think it's, and he's a doctor during a pandemic. It was like all the stars aligned. And then, and I think it was hard on her this year because, like I said, season 1 and 2, I learned about social media and about, watching the show and being like, maybe you're a little offended. But now I kind of look at it as, they're doing their job and I'm doing my job. So like, we're all, but I think for her, it's a learning curve. It's a huge learning curve. Then you go on interviews and then you hear other people's interviews. And it's just, so, I don't know. I feel for her. I see a little bit of myself season 1 and 2 in her. Like I've met with her twice and I'm like, girl, you have the same mistakes I've made. So, but, you have to learn for yourself. Like we've messaged back and forth a little bit. I don't really like talk and hang out with a lot because people that I've known forever, I don't get to see whenever we're filming. So I try to really soak up those relationships when we're not. So I don't see a lot of the girls off the show because there are other friends that I'm, trying to make sure that they still like me after this is over. So,
Right.
And my children, I don't get to see them as much. So I try to prioritize a little bit more whenever I'm not filming. Yeah.
Let's talk also about like yours and Cameron's friendship this season. You
Yeah.
guys are amazing and hilarious together.
Oh,
Why,
thank you.
why do you and also we're going to talk about Carrie and D'Angelo. I feel like if
Uh-huh.
you're the peacemaker, you'll be able sometimes to come in and jump in
Yeah.
and talk about both sides where they don't understand. I mean, what's your opinion on all the drama really this season?
With Carrie and Deandra, I mean, this was nothing new, like maybe for the audience, but I have heard them complain about each other for a whole summer.
Oh,
So
so you're used to
yeah,
it.
so it was like same thing, just there's a camera. So it was nothing new. I think they're both very strong personalities. Out of everybody, I
Yes.
believe they're the two like they're very much alpha. They're two very strong, super opinionated people, which doesn't usually mesh that well because you usually can have one opinionated person, but you can't have like two people that are very strong personalities. So I was expecting it. And I don't know, even like living it, I think they both are kind of hard on each other. They both, handle things probably in a way that I don't wouldn't, but it's their relationship. I know they love each other. They just have a really weird way of communicating that love. And I think that their relationship, they get on other's nerves and it just kind of boils over and
Right.
bubbles over and then they explode instead of just saying stuff. but they've been friends forever. So I think they're going to be fine. They just have a really really weird sibling relationship where they
It's like a
yeah,
miscommunication. So from your
they
observation,
love
it's
hard
almost
and they
like a,
fight real
yeah,
hard.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I
It's
love.
so
Does it
it's a
ever
lot.
bother you in the group though? Like I know sometimes like it's so funny to see you when you guys are doing activities and and sometimes you're like you could tell with your facial expressions like can we just move on from this? Can we
Yeah. It's
just
annoying. Like,
like does it ever affect you? Like how do you deal with it?
I mean, I remember in Austin, they both were mad at me. They didn't show, but they both were mad at me because I did not take their side enough. And I was like, you guys are both so mean to each other. Like, there's no side to take. You're both wrong. I'm sorry.
Right.
You're both
Yeah. I
horrible
love
to
when you
each
say
other.
you're
Like,
both wrong. You're both
like, there's no angel here. Like, there's like two, people going at it nonstop. So I don't know. I don't mind if people argue, but just don't try to make it my problem because I don't have if that's something that kind of bothers me when people try to put you in the middle of all their issues. And I'm like, you guys just need to talk and leave everybody else out of this because I don't care if Dander calls me every day. I really don't. Like you do, I do not care. Like it's
right.
fine. But yeah, but it was nothing new. Like all of us, like we had seen it all like for a good 6 months before.
Do you ever get scared? Like sometimes when I'm in between friends, I get a little scared or operate from fear to tell them they're both wrong because I'm a people pleaser and I want both of them to like me and I want both of them to be happy. What's your advice though, how to handle a situation like that? And how do you not get scared to like that they're going to get mad at you? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, whenever you're on TV, if you tell them both you're right, then it will be aired and then you'll look horrible. So it
True.
kind of forces you to tell them they're both, like equally horrible to each other. And also whenever you're doing this, you get to see both sides. In real life, you don't. Like, so if Carrie says something about Deandra, I just have her, idea of what happened. And the same thing with Deandra. But whenever you see it, you're like, okay, you both are just pretty horrible to each other. So like this is
Right.
insane. Just
You're
leave me
being
out
like
of it.
neutral, like switch. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm like, I love you both. This is not my fight. Like I do not care about if Deandra's selfish, if she's not selfish. Like it's fine with me. I don't have this problem.
Can you share with us also a little bit about what you've been going through this season for the audience who haven't caught up yet? Like what would you say the major things you've gone through and how did you cope with them? And talk to us about what you're working on too as well.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So one thing that I really wanted to do, I guess, after with COVID was I wanted to do something that made me happy. And I've wanted to do a foundation for, oh my goodness, since I been married to Travis, because before that I was in the social work field and it was something that I really loved. So we started a foundation and we do a bunch of different charities, but the one thing that we do is education. We do it for all of our employees and their children and their spouses. So if you work for us, if you want to be a teacher, a nurse, whatever, we will pay for your books, tuition, everything, just to give you the life you want, which is kind of fun and really exciting to see people, especially people who maybe work in the plant who, really want their kids to get an education that they never were able to get. It's kind of cool because it gives them a bigger purpose in working there. So they feel like you're taking care of their family. And as a mom, there's nothing more important than your children.
Totally.
And then we're doing like renovations for high schools that are that need, usually they're going to be ones that are in, like more inner city high schools that really need somebody to go in and help them and fix everything up. So we're doing that. We actually started recently working with some professional athletes and kind of helping them redo spaces and kind of give back in that way. And then we do a lot of domestic violence work. I think domestic violence is something that people don't like to talk about, but it's a very real thing in the world. So I like to do charity work and be not so, I don't know. I think some things people just love to get behind and some things people are like, it's uncomfortable. I like to do charity work where the discomfort is because those are charities that are many times overlooked. So
How can
domestic violence, yeah.
How can we, sign up to the website, check out all the information?
Yeah. So it is, if you go just on our website, Hollman.com, and then there's a charity, click on that you can get to. And then HollmanFamilyFoundation.org. And the domestic violence agency that we work with is thefamilyplace.org. And Big Brother, Big Sister is another one that Travis and I are very involved in. I think that mentoring, especially children that are struggling is a life-changing thing to do. So those are kind of I don't know, I like to give a lot to, I think the fewer you choose, you can do a lot of impact. Where you go to, 50 charities, you really can't do that much of an impact because you're spread so thin. So we try to do more impact in smaller fields.
I love that, giving back. I'm so about that. Okay, so so I wanted to talk about a little bit about who you're the closest with this season and why, and who do you feel you're at odds with and why, and take us through that a little bit.
I would say, Brandi and I have always, she's my best friend, so I feel like I'm always super close to her. Cameron and I are really, really, really close this year as well, which is nice. Carrie Brittingham, I love her. She is so loyal. It drives me crazy sometimes to watch the show because I know a side of her that just does not translate at all. Like, she's so funny, and she's like, just, she's kind of has a different sense of humor, but it just doesn't translate. She just, is like, girl, you just, like, even your jokes don't land. It's just like, so I do love her. I think I love people that are just really, really fiercely loyal like that. Love it. Like, if you're that person, I will love you forever. Like Tiffany and I, like, a little, it's hard. It was hard for me to get to know her during the season. Like, we messaged, we're friendly. But I feel like I'm definitely closer to like Deandra and the other girls that I've known. We've been together for 4 years. Deandra, like, we are close. Deandra is that person that never calls, which is fine. I told her, I said, I don't want you to call me all the time. Like, I would hate that. Please do not. Because then I won't answer. And then, like, it's going to be horrible. Like, I do not have the same goals as Carrie does with you. We talk some, but she's just not like I think she works so much that she's a lot like my husband. Like, my husband will call and he'll be like, straight to the point and off the phone. So kind of the same with Deandra. She needs something, she'll call you, get it, and then she's done. So she's just not like one of those people that sits around and talks on the phone. There's nobody on the show that I dislike and then that I think is a horrible person. Like, sometimes you film with people and you're like, you're just not that good of a human. I really do think everybody has a good heart and good intentions. It's a hard forum to be in. And I understand that. Like, I can look at people even when they make me mad and I'll be like, and I understand why they do the things they do. Right. And so there's nobody that I just dislike. And there were other seasons where I definitely disliked people. I think everyone, including myself, I'm sure I do things that other people are like, oh, that's not, there are times whenever all of them do things that I don't agree with. Right. But that doesn't mean that they're bad people. Just, we all make bad decisions or mistakes and you have to live with them.
Yeah. Do you think, you mentioned, a lot of you have a good heart. Do you think that's why out of all the franchise, the drama isn't too dark and it's actually, you guys can always get back to a place of friendship?
Yeah. I do, especially this year. Like, there have been some seasons, but I also think those seasons where the drama is dark, the audience love. So, I'm like, I guess it's good for the show. But I do think with our show, the drama was honestly kind of ridiculous, right? Like, it was about Deandra being selfish, chicken feet. Just like kind of crazy things. So it wasn't
by the way, as her close friend, did you feel she was being selfish or do you feel she was being misunderstood?
Deandra?
Yes.
Sometimes I think she can be selfish, but I also think that that's who she is as well. Like, I don't think she means it. Like, it's not like
bad about it. Right?
No. And also, like, I also think whenever you're an only child, a lot of times life revolves around you and you just do your own thing. And then, so, Deandra reminds me a lot of my husband. So I do have a little soft spot with her because she, like Travis, like, he will call people and he'll just get his point across and hang up. And some people think that's mean, but that's just how he is. And it's, so I just think that's who she is. Like, I don't know if she's had a lot of girls. She's always like, I don't have a lot of girlfriends. I don't know if she's had those girlfriends to talk on the phone with and, like, you get deep with. And then she is, you have to take people for who they are in life. Like, you have to take people for who they are.
I think that's the sense of humor in you. I think that's what I love about you, is that you just take people for who they are. That's amazing. Do you feel like you mentioned other seasons, how do you feel this season is without LeeAnne? I know you guys have had your issues,
yes.
How have you been able to jump back from those issues? Where do you stand now?
I mean, LeeAnne and I do not talk. Do I wish her ill will? No, not at all. I feel for her. I think I feel for her much more now that I saw, Brandi, everything that she's gone through. It made me really be like, oh, you kind of, whenever you see cancel culture firsthand, you're kind of like, oh, it's deep and it's hard, and you see things and it changes you a little bit. So I do feel for her. I know she had a really hard year. I know she made a lot of mistakes, but I know that had to have been very emotionally hard for her. I think it was much more light this year, but I also will never, ever, ever say LeeAnne was not good TV. She was fantastic TV. She gave some of the best, most iconic moments we have ever had were from her. And I definitely think that you have to give her credit for that, and I wish her the best. But she was good. She's great reality TV. I mean, she really is. Like she's great reality TV. I don't know if the show is healthy for her.
Right.
And I hope she's in a much better place now.
Would you want to see her return eventually, or you never know? I mean, your thoughts.
Well, when I'm gone, maybe.
That's a great answer. God forbid, I feel like you're going to stay on forever. We need you on. We need you on. Let's talk a little bit about what if there were to be a, recast or some other housewife to come in from other housewife franchises? Who would you want? And who are you close to? Are you close to other housewives?
Oh my gosh, when we all met at Andy Cohen's birthday, and everybody, it's really like a sorority of women who are so kind, like it's so respectful of each other. It was kind of funny because within the franchises, they all kind of were mad at each other, and they would talk about, the person they didn't like in their own franchise. But as a whole, everyone was really nice. Who I really, really love I don't remember really saying anything to her at the baby shower, is Candy from Atlanta. Yes. I kind of like that she's such a girl's girl, and I watched the infamous episode with the Bolo or whatever that guy's name is, and I love the fact that she was like, what happens in the dungeon stays in the dungeons, and you don't tell on your, I don't know, I just was like, that's kind of a cool girl. Lisa Rinna, I just think she's good TV. She's fun. I know some people love her, some people hate her, but I find her very entertaining. And everybody's really like Whitney from Salt Lake. We have the same agent, so I talk to her quite, often just via text. And they're just, I don't know, they're good. If you're not in the franchise together, you kind of tend to like everybody outside of it. They're all real nice. Yeah. It's like a sorority. Yeah.
It's like a sorority. I love that. Before we wrap up, I have two quick questions. Chanel in the City, what is your favorite place in Dallas or New York City when you come here to go check out and just escape?
Ooh, let me see. Oh my gosh, in New York, I feel like I'm always working. So I always end up going to is it Baccarat that yes. To get drinks. I always end up going there for some reason. I just think it's really beautiful. But I always feel like I'm working. Where else do I always? Carrie Brittingham goes to New York all the time. So usually she makes reservations and I just eat. But here's the deal. In New York, I don't feel like you guys have any bad restaurants.
Right.
You really don't. Like you go to a place that's a hole in the wall and it's great. Yeah. You don't have any bad restaurants
that we can look forward to?
Monarch restaurant's really, really great. It's so hard to get into right now. I'm trying to get in for my husband's birthday. I like Town Hearth. I don't go out to eat that often. So I love a really good steak whenever I do. And if you like margaritas, Mambo taxis at Mi Casina are real fun. You can only have two because then you won't be able to walk home, but they're real fun.
I love that. And one thing you'd like for us to take away from you this season, when we're watching the reunion, when we're just watching because we have a lot more episodes to go, what's one thing you'd like for us to take away from about you?
Oh my goodness. I'm not perfect. I am just a girl, a small town girl, do my best. And, I actually like when people give me constructive criticism. I think you can learn a lot of, learn and grow a lot. But in general, I think people sometimes forget that the person they're watching on TV is a human who has feelings and a heart and who has bad things going on in their life too. So, I think if people looked at them a little bit more like, what, they're just like me, just have a camera in their face a few times a month, it would make the world a little bit of a better place. Because I don't get a lot of hate on my social media, but sometimes I go on other people's and I'm like, it's vicious. It's really, really vicious. And people take a lot of pleasure in tearing people down. And I see a lot of that going on right now. And
Yeah.
it's so sad. There needs to be more kindness and compassion and forgiveness and, rooting for each other instead of always looking for the worst. So I just think if people looked at everyone a little bit more with a little bit more compassion, it would be much better. Yeah.
Amazing. And thank you so much, Stephanie, for
Thank
being
you.
here, for taking out your
Thank
time.
you for having me.
We love you. We're rooting for you. Where can everybody follow you for all your great information? And we're gonna all join the charity and give back, because that's my favorite part about you too. So yeah, tell us where we can follow you for more info.
Oh my gosh. Steph Hollman on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. And yeah, that's it. And then the charity is the HollmanFamilyFoundation.org.
Amen. I love that.
Hi, it's Stephanie Hollman with the Real Housewives of Dallas, and you're listening to me with Chanel Omari on the Chanel in the City podcast.